Amazon's Lord of the Rings of Power was inarguably one of the worst things we saw on television in 2022. And that's saying a lot because there was a lot of bad shit. However, if it's possible, it looks like things are getting even worse. It doesn't look like even God wants Rings of Power to go forward. The past couple weeks have been actual disasters on set. There was a fire on the set of Lord of the Rings of Power. A horse died on the set of Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2. PETA was super upset about this happening. How dare you let this happen to these animals? And now people at Amazon, Jeremy, are actually leaking internal information about what happened during Season 1 and the reality about the viewership numbers and things like that. Only 37% of people in the United States finished Season 1 of Lord of the Rings of Power. These are not numbers that Amazon's supposed to get out there. These are things they're supposed to keep very close to the vest because it's not good news. In fact, they would have taken 50% and seen that. If 50% of people had finished it, it wouldn't have been great, but it would have been acceptable and solid for them. 37% is a nightmare because that's an indication of how many people actually want to come back for Season 2. For the most expensive TV show in history, $1 billion for 2 seasons of this shit.
All we can do is tell you what we think. And apparently that means we're toxic. Why didn't we bitch about Top Gun Maverick? Because it was good. Why didn't we bitch about Stranger Things Season 4? Because it was good. Why didn't we bitch about Cobra Kai, even though I did clickbait it and told everybody it was woke and pissed off a lot of people? Because it was good. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, still one of the worst titles ever. Why I call it Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, whatever. Yeah. Rings of Power is an abomination beyond belief. This was the most expensive television show we've ever seen, based off one of the most famous IPs of all time, based off some of the best films ever made, in my opinion, the best films ever made, playing off of that. And we told everybody this was going on. This series is bad. This is bad storytelling. This is offensive storytelling to the lore, to the fandom, to the creation of Lord of the Rings. And we kept hearing the shills out there denying the obvious. Now you have nothing but facts slapping you right in the face. And again, once again, we the fans were right. This is a bad series, and Amazon is struggling because of it. Deservedly so.
It just seemed like everything's going wrong. Remember, they spent all this money to build all these sets and everything in New Zealand because they were going to film everything there. Well, that changed, and then they had to build a bunch of sets in the fucking UK as well, spending way more money than they thought they would have to. It's not like they just spent, $200 million. Like, you're talking $1 billion for 2 seasons of something, when they're sitting there making something like House of the Dragon for 150, 200 million bucks a season, which is still a lot, obviously, but it is fractions of what Rings of Power costs. And for Amazon, who is basically banking the entire existence of Amazon Prime Video streaming on this is huge. They came out and said that. People working at Amazon said, this is really going to be an indicator for us. If we can't take this IP with all this money behind it and we can't make this successful, then really, why the fuck are we even in this business? Because they don't have to be. They could cancel it in a heartbeat and they'd still be fine with all the stuff they have going on with their actual Amazon website. But numbers like that only about a third of people were actually able to finish the season, that is a nightmare for them going forward. And it's really too late for them to course correct.
It's only going to get worse. You play off of the previous movie. So if the previous movie didn't play well, even though if it made a lot of money, then the next one is going to, if it ended like weak and people didn't like it, then it's not going to set up good for the follow-up. And we've seen that 1,000 times. So with something like Iron Man went into Iron Man 2. Iron Man 1 was a huge success. Iron Man 2, a lot of people didn't like it, but it made a lot of money. But then Iron Man 3 came out, was during like the whole Avengers thing and everything like that. So it had all this momentum. So right now, Rings of Power, there was a lot of interest with Rings of Power for a lot of different reasons when the show first premiered. Obviously, the marketing, the backlash, the defense of it. It's Lord of the Rings, a lot of interest, and the fall off was massive. Now you're going into season 2. You have almost no momentum whatsoever. People have seen exactly what you've produced. I think they're in a really, really bad way.
It was an embarrassment. And I think it might have been the biggest failure of the year, even with the terrible things we saw like She-Hulk, whatever, because of how important Lord of the Rings is to people, because of how historic that franchise is and these stories are and how respected they are. And to do what they did while at the same time spending so much money has to be considered maybe the worst failure of 2022.